As a kid, I was with my father a lot, and he was in the sawmill business, and I got to see a lot of his struggle and how he had to deal with life in the sawmill business in the 50s. So when I went into business, I had been exposed to a lot, and I was able to take little and somehow or another manage to get by. I remember some of my first dump trucks. The guys who worked for me would come to work and take their license off the front and back and put on 2 trucks. And then they'd take the battery out of their pickup and put in the dump truck. And then maybe they bought the gas that day, but they all got paid back on Friday. But that was the kind of thing where wanting to be in the contracting business, and I needed to make a living because my son Joe was just born. So it was important to try to succeed in some way. I started out with an axe and a chainsaw, cutting firewood and pulpwood, and some homemade equipment my father had. And I still have all this stuff. And the first loader I have is a 951 Caterpillar. And that machine, Chuck and my 3 boys had it rebuilt and given back to me about 20 years ago.
I remember, I think the first fall that I was there might have been maybe 82. I believe we had one truck at the time that would start on its own. We would either jump off of that truck to the other 3 or whatever we had at the time to start them, or sometimes hook a chain to them and pull them. A lot of times by 8:30 or 9 o'clock, it felt like you'd worked a whole day already, trying to get all that stuff going.
I can remember taking a pickup truck and pulling a motor grader down Pemberton Road, somebody standing on it, shooting ether in it, trying to get it started because the batteries were no good and the starter motor wouldn't start. Like you said, you drove it, ran it, did work, you worked on it, you fueled it, and you moved it to wherever it had to go.
I was always in the maintenance division, and still am, and was firsthand with all of it. And we struggled. We struggled to make things because we couldn't afford to buy things. We struggled to take 2 and make 1. One thing that stands out, and I've got to tell this story, I think it was T-Bone. In fact, I'm pretty sure. We had an old D7 Caterpillar. Cold at one time. I mean, cold as blue blazes. I mean, unbelievable cold. And those tractors with big engines were hard to start anyway. Well, we had no batteries, and he called Joe one day and says, "Hey, Joe, this thing don't start." So Joe told him, "Don't worry about it. When you leave a job, just leave it running all night. We ain't got to worry about starting it in the morning." Well, these tractors had no mufflers, no nothing. And here we are in downtown Richmond. The next morning, the phone was ringing off the hook. I went in there, it was glowing from people downtown calling because that tractor's run all night long.
As a kid, I just thought this was pretty normal about having to constantly work on things. And then my dad would take us out to see Howard and T-Bone and all the guys in the field. And in the evenings, we would help those guys pump fuel because there was a hand pump. And we'd get up there as kids and crank the hand pump while their guys were fueling up. But as time went on, when we bought a new piece of equipment, it was quite a festive occasion because I remember when we first got 3 brand new pickups. Howard, Skeeter, and T-Bone all got them, and it was like we had hit the jackpot, or we'd hit the big time.
Well, I came on April 1st, 1979, and I didn't know much about equipment, but I did know enough to know what I was looking at was dreadful. So it took several years to accumulate the wherewithal to acquire newer equipment, not all the time factory fresh new, but newer to us, newer used equipment. And over time, things started to get better. You wouldn't have to hook 5 jumper cables up to a loader to get it to start. You could do it the old-fashioned way by pressing the start button, and it would start. And little by little, with little baby steps, our fleet of equipment kept getting better and better and better. So it started snowballing. And as it's turned out, in the year of 2022, we probably have one of the finest equipment fleets in Central Virginia.